At the top of the program, I had a strong focus on the Indigenous Voice proposal, which is now front and centre of the political debate. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese went to the Garma Festival in Arnhem Land on the weekend, and he outlined the proposed constitutional change. It says, in short, there should be a voice. Second, that it can make representations to Parliament and the government, make representations alone. And third, that the Parliament has the power to form it and change it as it sees fit. Now, I had my say at the top of the program. You know I advocate strongly for this reform, and I also spoke with the opposition's spokesperson, Julian Leeser. He was very non-committal, despite being a long-time supporter of a voice. He wants to see the actual legislation for the detail of the voice, what shape the voice would take under Labor, even though, of course, any government could make changes in the future.
There's some big details that the government hasn't let us in on yet, and we want to hear from them. We want to understand how the voice bodies will work. Who will serve on them? How will they be chosen? What will their powers be? And how will they make lives of people in Indigenous communities better?
Let's now go to Roy RC, who's a member of the Uluru Dialogue Leadership Group. He joins us from the central coast of New South Wales. Thanks for joining us, Roy. It's a big step forward to see Anthony Albanese lay out the three-clause constitutional wording that he'd like Australians to adopt. But how quickly do we actually need to see the shape of the voice, the details of the voice that Labor would like to legislate?
Yeah, look, Chris, thanks for having me on your program. It's always a pleasure. And look, it was momentous. When he went up to Garma on the weekend, I thought of my mum, and she passed away a few years ago now, and I'm a 67 baby. I was 10 months old, Chris, when my mother became a citizen in this country, and that's not long ago. The 67 referendum, and I hear Albanese talk about, taking this country to a referendum to let the Australian people have their say. We've had enough of toing and froing, the politics, and the Uluru Statement from the Heart, Chris, was always a gift to the Australian people. It was never about the politicians. But the politicians have weaponised it and turned it into a political statement rather than a gift to the Australian people.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing statement of consensus, for starters, from Aboriginal Australia that they would accept this. Now, the 67 referendum, people view it in different ways. There's a bit of folklore around it. But what it did do, obviously Aboriginal Australians were citizens before then. They were voting in some of the states even before Federation. But what 67 did was give the federal government power to make laws over Indigenous people. And I sometimes think back, we know how broadly that was supported at the time. If we'd said then that Canberra can make laws about Indigenous people and they should get advice from them first, it would have been a no-brainer, wouldn't it? Absolutely, absolutely.
But and we've seen them powers used, discriminately and the Northern Territory intervention. They were used for political purposes, and I understand that. There's a social disadvantage in our communities. In every communities. There's challenges when it comes to, working with our people, and I'm not going to be naive to say that that doesn't happen, and we have challenges. However, I think the country's in a position now under this new leadership to let the Australian people have their say. Let the Australian people have their say. Chris, we need to heal country, heal people, because together we heal the nation, and that's what this process is all about. We got to bring black and white together, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, and what have we got to lose? What have we got to lose as Aboriginal people? Because we've been down the road and back. So I think it's an exciting time. I'm really, really sad to hear our leaders in this. Well, they're not my leaders. There's a green voice, there's a blue voice. We need a black voice. And when I hear people like Lydia Thorpe talk in the Senate, I hear a green voice. I don't hear a black voice because black people didn't put her there, or Jacinta Price.
Well, tell me about the detail, though. We know that under the constitutional wording that the government's released, that obviously Parliament would be supreme in forming the voice, and different governments over time could change it if it wasn't working effectively. But don't we need to see what Labor would propose, the detail of how they would shape a voice if they were able to legislate one tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, Chris. The Prime Minister, the question was put to the Prime Minister, and I think in response, I tend to agree with what the Prime Minister said is, once we give over detail, I'm not saying that the detail's not there, and I'm not a lawyer too, by the way, but I mean, what's happened in the past is when too much details is given, it's used to weaponise against us and pick apart by lawyers or other sections of the community that have got an axe to grind towards not seeing the fundamental rights of our people being put on the agenda. And I'd hate to see that happen. So again, I think the Prime Minister's articulated a way forward. He's put a question that could potentially go to the Australian people, and I think we need to let it take its course now.
We sure do. The debate's underway now. It's got some shape. Thanks for joining us, Roy. Appreciate your time.
Chris, thanks for having me on your program. It's a pleasure.
Roy RC there, who's with the Uluru Dialogue Leadership Group. Now, it's a big day on this issue because of what the Prime Minister announced on the weekend. I'm going to keep looking at this issue, of course, in the weeks and months to come. It won't be over the top every day, but as you can understand, it's been quite historic and a real shaping of the debate, given what Anthony Albanese announced on the weekend.